Let's start recording. There's Walter.
So who would like to drive today?
Drive what?
What do you mean?
Who would like
by
to drive SmartSheet?
Oh God. How about Nicholas? I don't even know if he has a login though.
Have you logged in before, Nicholas?
I haven't logged in just yet.
Let's see. Does he have access, Jacob?
I just gave him access.
Oh. Maybe if you could put the link in the
Yeah, let me do that right now.
chat.
Give me 1 second. And the only reason is because with Control Center, typically the pace can be a lot from if I were to do it.
Right.
I find it best when everyone else does it. Give me 1 second. I'm pulling it up right now. Okay. I'll go ahead and put that up the chat. So this is the one of the places. And then the other is here. So that's the SmartSheet side. And then the second is the Control Center side.
So did you want Nicholas to log in or
That would be great.
can we log in too and kind of play along on the side?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. So which one should we log into?
The top one, the bottom one, I would say one person would do that. And the top one, I'd say anyone can. I need to share it out to everyone else. I have everyone's email up, so I'll grab it for everyone else. But we're just going over Control Center today and more specifically the template and how it works with Smart, or realistically the first part, which is just the connector. And then we'll go into global updates and archiving in our next meeting.
So I guess Nicholas would be the Control Center guy.
Yeah, I'd say that would probably be the best.
Mhm. And then do you want him to share the screen?
That would be great too. So I'm just grabbing everyone's email. So I can put you in the template too.
Got all that, Nicholas?
Yep.
All right.
Yeah, if you have to forget passwords, then that's fine too. But as kind of a refresher, so Control Center is this kind of big, oh cool, okay. Oh, you didn't even have a license. Well, that's an issue. I'll go ahead. Does anyone else that has a license want to share?
I do. I have a license for Control Center.
Okay, so Nicholas, get out of it, I guess. Yeah.
Well, that was quick.
Yeah.
Training over.
Well, I'm using the generic, email address that we created.
Yeah, definitely use the admin one. That's perfect.
Okay.
You,
Do you
sure to
want me
everything.
to share it or?
yeah, if you could
just
share your
go ahead
screen,
and
that would be great.
Okay.
Because, yeah, perfect. Okay, cool. So go ahead and the first thing you're going to do is hit the launcher in the 3x3 square grid right there and see if it shows up. Okay, cool, already does. So go ahead and select Control Center right now. So it'll usually show up right in that spot, but it will also show up in our in a few different spots as well. But typically, what I just suggest is putting in the URL once that you can logging in, so then your account knows that it's attributed to it, and then from there we can you can go through the launcher. So Control Center is our way to create projects at scale. So the process of making new sheets, making new dashboards, making new reports, and trying to make sure that all of them talk to each other. It's a very manually intensive process. And oftentimes before Control Center, we were asked, hey, why do I have to do this manual each time? Like I'm, not connecting everything, or not everything's lining up, or things aren't talking to each other, and I don't have the time to fix that. So what we came up with a way is a kind of a solution that will be able to make cell link connections for you. It'll be able to copy and make copies and duplicates of template items, such as sheets, dashboards, reports. It'll perform transposing and other kind of things that are helpful, and it will also update reports and other things. So it does a lot of things that would be manually intensive for you automatically. So that's what this is for. But to start out, what we're going to go through today is how do we even tell it to begin? Like how does it know what to do? And so that's what we're covering today. So right away, this will be your Control Center main home. So this is for a program. So the way that you can look up a program is your Control Center instance. So this is your Control Center solution instance. It's not necessarily a count, but it's basically what contains everything that is for this particular Control Center piece. And then we've got projects, which is of course going to be a collection of sheets, reports, and dashboards. So for example, one of the projects was the BH377 DSA suite renovation, or the College of Business Student Success Center. So those are what we kind of call as projects, which you can see in here, in this little kind of row, these different rows. And then last piece is our blueprint, which we're going to come up in a minute. And that is the DNA to tell Control Center how to behave, what Control Center should do. That's the last piece. And that's what we're going to be editing today as our blueprint. So right away, right here from this screen, you can see all of your active projects. You can edit them. You can open them and go to their dashboards directly from here. You can delete them if you want to, but you can also create new projects from here. And this is something that's going to be done regardless. We did cover it on our system admin training, that little create project button. So I'm not going to get too much into it. But the other thing that we can do, and you'll see in the top right, if you are a primary lead, which most of you will be, once I get replaced, I'll add in anyone else. In that top right, you'll see the manage program with the little cogwheel. And that is what we're going to be working today. So go ahead and select that. So we're going to manage our program.
Okay, so quick question. So,
Yeah.
so all project managers will need access to this particular Control Center?
To Control Center, yes, but not to as an admin.
Okay, I see. Okay.
Yep. So go ahead and manage program. So if you go up to the name really quickly, so up to the name, there's a little I section. So not here, but the name SCC Starter Program in the direct center. Yep. Go ahead and hit that I. So this is where you can add new people. I just added in program users. I look like I added Stephanie twice, so I apologize. But again, this is where we can just add people. Now we can have up to 5 leads, 1 primary lead, and then 5 leads. So I'm taking up a spot, so I will get out of there afterwards. And then we have multiple program users. So the program users are people who can come in and create projects. And that, what we'll do with the program information is you can hit edit really quickly. Yep. And then you can add in groups to that program user. So if you had a SmartSheet group of project managers, etc., then you could add them in here, and then they can automatically come into here and create projects.
Can you try editing my email? Because that's the wrong one.
Yeah, you can actually remove it and then retype it in. So down in the program user section.
Scroll down some.
Yeah, scroll down a little bit,
Oh.
Walter. Yep,
There
that
it
under.
is.
So see where it says Ben. Yep, go ahead and
Yeah.
remove that. And then start typing. And one should show up.
Dot partita.
Well, it doesn't come up.
Yeah, and we can do it offline too. But yeah, so that's what we would do.
So going back, Jacob, you had mentioned, okay, what's the difference between a program user and an admin?
So it says right above the name. So additional leads can actually make changes, structural and behavioral changes, configurations to here. The program leads can just come in and create and edit projects. And this does
So-
not affect Smartsheet as of right now. It's just what they can do in this URL control
So
center.
the primary lead would be people like Nicholas or Walter, who we want to own SmartSheets, like the behind the scenes kind of stuff. Control the people that can come in, the users, etc. But they would have to use the BBS Smartsheet login.
So I just didn't include Walter in the additional leads just because he's got access to the BBS, but yes. It can be through the primary lead, or it can be through the additional leads. So like right now I can make changes. Neil can, Nicholas can, Rika can, Stephanie can, and then that's about it. And then from there, everyone else in the program users can create projects.
Okay.
And that's where we can add groups or domains.
Okay. But you had mentioned that this is where project managers would create projects. I thought they create projects outside in the project input data sheet, whatever.
So that's where projects begin, but based off of that list, that's where they come into here and create the project. Because you need to tell Control Center to copy the sheets, to copy the template and everything.
But doesn't that I am confused. Doesn't that all
Yeah.
happen automatically?
So you have to tell what
yeah.
project to create. Unless you want to do auto provisioning, which you could, but
So why do you have two areas? Shouldn't it, I mean, the project sheet is, do you create it here first and then it automatically you can call it out on the project sheet, or is it the other way around?
so we covered this in our previous recordings twice. But so it starts in the intake. So the intake is going to be what projects then Control Center you can create in Control Center. And the reason being is we can set up auto provisioning, where as soon as I hit approve in the intake sheet, it creates it. That's completely fine.
Yeah, I
But
think
there's a
that's what we
reason why
want.
they don't do that right now. And it's because if you want to add an additional sharing, or if you want to, not provision a project immediately, even though it's been approved, that's why we have people come in and create the project. But you can do auto provisioning, and I'm more than happy to set that up.
Because it seems like that's what it did when you created the project and project intake, you pushed approved, right? And then all of a sudden it did its magic and all these sheets showed up and the project was created.
I came in here and hit create project
Oh, I don't remember you doing that.
and talking about sharing stuff. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It'd be
So then I came
automatic
in
would be
here and then I
better.
hit create project, and then I created that piece.
Yeah, is there a reason why you would not want it to be automatic, or?
For sharing permissions, it'll take default sharing. If you want to share to select individuals or share specific templates, then you don't want to. Weirdly enough, once you create a project using, or which Control Center creates a project, then you have to share things individually afterwards. I'm not sure why it's like that. It just is. And then the other reason being, if you don't want to, if there's certain projects that are just more, they're approved, but they're not in flight yet, you didn't want to create something in via Control Center, then you would just be able to select what project you're going to create. But realistically, that's where we can easily set up auto provisioning for you. So it can do either. I can either create a project, or it'll just do it automatically.
Yeah, I think the less steps, the better
Cool.
for a
Perfect.
project manager. And then
Yeah.
they could share as needed from there. As long as
Exactly.
the project manager whoever creates the project, once it's approved, I would assume be the project initiator. And that would be the project manager can now control the sharing. Is that correct?
That's correct. Mhm.
Okay.
Yep. So go ahead and hit save, and then I'll go ahead and get that auto provisioning set up for you. Okay. So let's go. Yep. Go ahead and exit out, and then from here you can hit cancel. Perfect. So right here is the blueprint. So when we say, oh, it automatically provisions or automatically creates a project, this blueprint right here, Capital Construction Project, is all of the different configurations so that, again, it can do exactly that. So we're basically going to tell it what to do. So we're going to tell it how to identify what projects should be created on the intake. We're going to define how it actually creates or transfers information or links information from our intake sheet to our individual project folder. and then how it rolls up information to our project or our project update sheet. So go ahead and select that capital construction project.
Oh,
Not the new blueprint. If you get a $20,000 PO just now, just know it's because you clicked on that. No,
No,
we joked around because there's been a few clients that have done that. They just added new blueprints and then they get the bill for it without being told. But in this case, you don't have to worry about that. So that I did send a transfer request, but I'll send another one so we can just get that transferred over to you. So we'll do that today. But it's basically saying that there's a smart sheet that covers all of these changes, and that's what it's asking is I became the owner of it, so it's just asking to be transferred back to you, and we can do that today. But go ahead and hit continue. Now, on the right side, before we even get into the left, on the right side, these are the different steps for Control Center. So again, it's starting with what are the basics? What should my project folder contain, which is our source template settings. Then it's the blueprint components, which is how should it behave? Do we have an intake? Do we have a summary roll-up, which is our project update sheet? And do we have dynamic reports, which we'll talk about as well. Then the next piece is the intake setting. So this is how should it behave with our intake? How should it interact with our intake? Okay, it's going to pull a project name. It's going to only create a project if it's been approved, that checkbox approved has been selected, or sorry, not the checkbox, the drop-down menu has been approved. And then next is what information is it going to take from the intake sheet to the project folder, to our project data sheet. And that's the next piece, which is the profile data selection and the customized profile data. And then it's how is it going to roll up the information? So in this case, the blueprint summary, it's going to roll things up using cell links and transposing. So that's from the project data sheet to our project update sheet. And then lastly, it's naming and permissions.
so is this basically the behind the scenes connecting the dots? I'm trying to understand what Control Center is. Connecting
behind
the
the
dots in
scenes.
terms, yeah, okay, the behind the scenes, all right.
Yep. It's the one that's doing all the work for you except for, actually getting the project done. So
Okay,
it just meant so that you're not starting at square one and there's a lot of manual work to get to there. It's basically there to do all that work automatically for you. So then you can just come in and start working out of your project. That's what it's for.
okay,
So with that being said, right where you're on, so you can change the name of the blueprint here in the description. And you can also select where projects should be stored. So in this case, with project storage, select where project will be stored. Is it going to be a pre-selected workspace? Is it going to be a new workspace for each project? Is it going to be, are we going to allow users to select a workspace or create one? I typically use pre-selected workspace or new workspace for each project. In this case, we shouldn't have a new workspace for each project. That would be absolutely insane, especially for navigation. I typically use a pre-selected workspace, and that's typically like an active projects workspace. And just for those who aren't familiar, workspace is basically like a filing cabinet. So are we going to create a new filing cabinet for each project? Are we going to put them in a pre-selected filing cabinet, or are we going to allow someone to choose? In this case, we want the pre-selected. And then what is that pre-selected workspace? And so then that's where star CSULB dash active projects is our workspace. And that is the current one where our project folders are contained. So that's gonna be the storage for it.
when projects close out, do you have an option to move it to a closed project?
Yeah, so we're gonna archive. So there's an archive workspace as well, but we haven't, we're saving that for our next.
Okay, great, sorry.
Yep, no, it's okay. So let's go ahead and hit next. So this is the best thing. So this is where, again, this is going to be the menu where we get to choose what is in our template. So when a project is created, what is going to be contained within that folder. And so right now, this is a great example. Neil created a new contingencies and allowances log based off of that master log. And so it's basically asking, hey, I've detected a new sheet. Would you like to add it to the config so that every time I create it comes with a copy one contingencies and allowances log. So in this case, we're going to hit yes. Now you'll see in here, when I remove something or I rename a sheet inside of the template, and if we go to SmartSheet really quickly, Walter, you mind going to the SmartSheet instance?
Let's see if I,
It's a different tab. I know, I'm sure this Zoom's blocking it. It's going to be that new templates folder right in the center of the screen. So not where your cursor is, to the right of your cursor, in the little kind of center screen. Yep, that's again, if I change any of the names of these in this new templates folder, since that is the designated area where my templates are being, it's going to ask for us to recreate or to basically enable them, because it's saying, hey, I just found out there's this new sheet, or hey, you've removed these sheets. Do you want to exclude or include them? And you'll say, yep, to both. So now if we go back to Control Center, we'd say, yep. So these I moved out. So then we'll say, yes, I do not want these anymore. So the first piece is designating your folder. So what am I in SmartSheet going to be copying each time? And in this case, it's our new templates folder. So that's where we select our source folder. And then from here, it's what templates do we want to include? Do we want everything? Do we want to exclude some things? Do we want to make some things optional? So those are some of the things to keep in mind. So you can see here, because those sheets don't exist anymore, they've been removed. So you'll see that they no longer have a checkbox on there. But you could deselect some things and say, I want to exclude them even though they're in there. And then the other thing you can do is choose if they're optional or required. So optional means that when I create a project, I can choose whether I want to include it, or required means it's going to come every time.
If it's optional, when you launch it, you said you're going to automatically launch it. Does the PM get asked that question? Do you want to add it or
Nope.
not?
All
Okay.
required. So in that case, it's typically, it'll create it, but if you want to use it, you can. If you don't, then you can delete it.
But you have to delete it in your Control Center.
No, you can just delete it in SmartSheet.
Oh, okay. Once
Yeah.
you're already in. Okay.
Yeah. So for example, if we left, let's say the RFI log is optional, we wouldn't be able to if we have auto provisioning on, but what would happen is it would create the RFI log anyways. And then in SmartSheet, when you're, going through your project, you can decide to delete it or keep it.
So going back to, the previous trainings,
Yeah.
any templates that we change, naming, whatever, configurations, links, we do that in new templates, correct?
Correct.
And then we would get noticed here if we want to launch a project. We don't have to go into Control Center to relaunch all the sheets again every time a new project's created, right?
No,
Okay.
it's only if I change the name of a sheet or I remove or add in a new sheet or item. So if I were to take out, so because we have the copies of the contingency and allowance log, if I were to rename that to 1-contingencies and allowance log and delete the original, that's when I'd come in here and change it. Or if for the CSU project link dashboard, if I were to remove that, then that's where I'd come and say, hey, can you confirm? And if I were to add in a new dashboard or add in a new sheet that doesn't exist currently in that folder, then I'd have to come in here. But as far as making changes to the template, so adding in some cell links or adding in new rows or adding in new columns, you don't have to come in here every time you do that.
Okay, this is then new templates. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
The new templates is where you're going to want to make changes. The new templates will impact all net new projects.
Okay. And then and the reason why we have to go in the Control Center, because you're actually cross-referencing sheets, right? And so if you change the name of a sheet, this is why you have to go into Control Center and relaunch it.
Typically, the crosslinks actually won't care if you change the name. The reason being, I'm not entirely sure actually what the reason is, because later on, it doesn't even care about the sheet name. It just cares about the ID. I couldn't answer for you why the justification as to why. I just know how it does it.
Okay.
But I would say probably one of the main reasons, actually, no, I don't even have a good reason, because in other points, it doesn't even care about the name. It will just go by ID. I'm not sure why it's the same here, unfortunately.
Okay.
That's how it works.
Okay.
Now, the next piece. So notice how when you're hovering over this row, you'll see the launch, that little blue launch follows you. Don't click on it just yet. What that does is when I hit the launch button in Control Center, or if I create a new project, this is the link that will be linked back to my intake sheet. and will be in the launch when I create a project in Control Center. So as of right now, we typically have the dashboards or a specific sheet be what goes straight or what we launch to. In this case, we have, if you can see in orange on the product dashboards, the bottom row, it's orange because we have selected that as being the launch piece. So that is what's going to come over into the intake sheet, so that as soon as I click on the project link in the intake sheet, it will take me to the project dashboard. And you'll see, I'll show you where the launch section is also on here after we finish configuring this. So now that we have selected what template items we want to, again, be included for every new project we create, now we're going to be continuing on the blueprint. Are there any other questions? Now, the next piece. So this is going to be where, and I don't know why that dynamic scope report was deselected, but that's perfect for training. So now it's, the next piece is what else will Control Center do? So it's what components should Control Center care about? That's basically what this is saying. Do we have an intake sheet, everyone? Yes.
Yeah.
Then we'll want that selected. Do we have information rolling up to a portfolio level? Yes, we need that selected. Do we have reports that look at multiple different sheets, especially for new projects? So if I create, for example, a new project and I have a report looking at all of the RFIs, the open RFIs, I would want to select dynamic report scope. So in this case, we're going to want to select that actually.
Right.
And typically it's portfolio level reports, so not reports that are included in the project folder, or reports that are excluded and aren't created every time a project's created. So that's where the dynamic report comes. That's the distinction between the two. So now we've told Control Center, I want you to incorporate an intake sheet. I want you to roll up information, and I want you to update reporting dynamically. Then we'll hit next. And that's again going to be all the behavior that we're going to be configuring in the next step. So the first part is the intake. So again, that's the beginning of the process. So we're beginning it here too. So the first thing is defining the intake sheet. Here's the weird thing. You don't have to come in here when you rename the intake sheet. I don't know why. I really don't. But this is where, again, we're selecting your intake sheet. Now, the cool thing is you can, one, search up for new intake sheets. If you have a new intake, I don't suggest doing that. Typically, we'll have one and we just archive it so that intake is always relevant. But the other thing you can do is just to confirm, you can always click on that button right next to the spyglass as well, or the magnifying glass, if you want to, but that will open up our intake sheet just for reference. Well, let's go ahead and go back to Control Center for now, and you can, remove that. The next piece is, great, we have an intake sheet, but how is Control Center supposed to understand it? How is it supposed to, decide when a project should be created? And how is it supposed to decide if a project's already been created? That's the next piece here. So the first thing is a project selection column. So what is going to be the project name, or how are we going to identify projects? That's kind of the first piece. Right now, the column project name is going to be that, but you'll see if you expand that drop down, you'll have all the different column headers in here. So you can kind of choose. And again, this is for people. This is primarily for people to assist. It's there to assist people when they're trying to create new projects and trying to select which project to create. Now, if we do auto provisioning, this is kind of doesn't matter too much because again, it's going to create projects regardless. And it doesn't need to select a project name. It's going to create it anyways. Now, the approval column is going to be important because this is going to be how we decide, or how do we determine whether or not a project is eligible to be created. So this is kind of our first logic gate. Now, if I put in a project or propose a project and it never comes to fruition, and I don't have this logic gate up here, then control center is going to create it, and it just did all this work or created, an extra project that you may never actually work on or may never become an active project. So that's why we have this for logic gate. Now to do so, we just have to pick a column. It can be a checkbox column or any of those kind of columns. In this case, we have a drop down: approved, decline, submitted. But that's going to be, again, how we determine whether or not projects are eligible, is that column. The next piece is the approval value. So what's the value that the row needs to contain to actually be created? And that's the approved. So if something's in denied or submitted, it's not going to show up to be created, and control center is not going to auto create it. Then the next piece is to avoid double duplication. It wouldn't be good if we had 13 business resource center or business student resource center projects, right? Or 13 DSA projects. So we need a way for control center to understand what's already been created and what's not. And that's, in this case, our SCC created column. And the value is check. Just check it. So every time it creates a new project, it's going to check that box. And that way we know what's actually been created by the system and what's not.
I have a question, Jacob, for the
Yeah.
intake. I mean, does this come always with SmartSheets, or did you create this logic?
I created the logic.
Oh, okay. So you created this template as kind of like the settings for our specific project. Okay. And then where do you control the approval people? Can it be
That'll be in
multiple
the sheet.
people? Okay.
Yeah.
I was
So,
gonna,
oh, go ahead.
no, I was gonna say, because there might be times, I mean, I would think Stephanie as senior PM would probably approve the projects as they get created, but if she goes on vacation or there needs to be a backup, we'd like to make sure that's available.
Yeah, and that'll be handled on the SmartSheet side. This is just more what should be considered eligible for creating a project. That's about it. So as soon as someone does go in, or Stephanie goes and approves it, then that's when it'll create it. So that's kind of what this is looking for, is when should I create it and when should I recognize that it's already been created. And the last piece is the advanced settings, and this is the project link column. This is when I go ahead and create the project, how will I be able to navigate it quickly from the intake? And that's where we use the dashboard link column. And remember when we selected launch for the dashboard in our previous screen, or previous two screens, our source template settings? That's what's going to be populating this dashboard link. So that's why since we named it dashboard link, it was already because we knew we were going to launch the dashboard. But if we were to launch a project plan, we'd do a project plan link or project link, or if it was a report, we'd do that. So that's kind of what it's for. And then the other thing you can do is if you want intake attachments. So let's say I attach a PO or a chain or a bid or something, and want to put it in or even like a proposal, and want to have that carried over to my project data sheet, then I could select intake or I could select my project data sheet with the intake attachments. It basically says, yes, I want the attachments inside of the intake to come to a different sheet or a specific sheet. And the last part, which since we're kind of going the route of auto provisioning, it's not as helpful, but when a user mainly comes in a control center and creates a project, we could filter that too. So we could say, well, only projects where you're the PM, or only projects where you are the requester, or blah, blah, blah.
So going back to intake attachments, we had talked about the Gene spreadsheet or the fiscal spreadsheet to possibly attach the POs to the where you like kind of hover over it and then the PO would pop up. Is that what you're talking about for intake attachments?
I just came up with that. That would be done in the fund tracker, so we wouldn't have to worry about this at all.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just purely for the intake sheet.
Okay.
Yeah.
RJ, are you clear on that one? Because I know that was a request that we wanted to kind of like the invoice or the PO, so you don't have to keep track of them like Gene used to, one by one.
Not entirely sure what you're talking about.
Remember we talked about, and we could talk about this later once we go into the fiscal side, but we talked about adding kind of like the PO, like a scan of the PO possibly into the fiscal sheet so that we knew. Anyway, we could talk about that later.
Okay.
All right. So now we can hit next. So the next piece is the profile data selection. This is where we'll typically spend a little bit of time because it can be kind of complex. We're going to go into SmartSheet for this too, Walter, but for now we'll stay on the screen. This is where I get to choose what information comes from my intake sheet and passes through the system. So this is the first spot. So we were talking about how the contractor, we want the contractor to come through and some other things. While it currently isn't. So this is again, a place that we can do that. That's why I left it kind of open for that piece. But right now, it will show you all of the columns as fields in here that are on the intake sheet and all of the rows that are indented underneath the summary row, which we're going to show you exactly what that looks like in the various sheets. So all the project data sheet rows are going to come in here, and all of the project or all of the intake columns are going to come into here. Now, the thing that is important is the locations place, because what this shows is it's showing where does that information currently live. For example, I know that I want my project name to pass through from my intake to my project data sheet because it's currently located on my project data sheet as well. Whereas, for example, you can see STC created, which is number 10. It's only on the intake sheet. I never made a row for it on the project data sheet. And that just makes it easier for me to know that, hey, I don't want this information to pass through. It's not necessary.
But, the CMS number is something that we want to pass through.
It is. And so I left
Okay.
that for us to do
You know,
today.
as a trick, I see. Okay.
Yeah. Now, before you, so you can select that, but is it located on our project data sheet right now?
It should be.
It should be. I think it's under a slightly different name, and that's another important piece.
Maybe project
CMS,
number.
it needs the column name needs to match the row name inside of the, so they need to match a name. That's all they need to match, but they need to match a name. So in this case, because you see it's not in the project data sheet, Control Center has no idea that it needs to make that connection. It doesn't have a destination. It says, yeah, I know where this is, but where am I supposed to put it? And since we haven't already done that before we've done this piece, we have to essentially put in here.
Okay.
But I'm going to show you two different ways that we can do this. So go ahead and keep it checked for now. We're going to scroll down just a little bit. So you'll see again, there's a lot of stuff, and some things only live on the project data sheet, and other things only live on the intake.
All right. So Walter just pointed out what we actually want. It's double stated. So CMS
It's
project
CMS
number.
project number versus CMS
Yeah.
number. Yeah.
So we can edit those things out of the intake if we see duplications.
Correct. So we're going to either edit the intake column or we're going to edit the project data sheets row.
Right.
So let's go
Okay.
quickly to SmartSheet so you can see this. And go ahead and open up that project data sheet. So those fields you see are these fields here.
Mm-hmm.
Anything that's indented under a row called summary, it's literally that orange, the darker orange row. It literally just needs to be called summary. Beats me why it has to be named summary, but it needs to be named summary. That it will be eligible for the profile. It'll be recognized as a piece of profile data. So in this case, we have CMS project number. If I wanted to call it CMS number, I'd come in here and I'd replace that with CMS. Instead of CMS project number, I just call it CMS number.
You can edit here
Yeah, you can edit here.
or just CMS number.
Mm-hmm. Now, and then I'd hit save, and then I can make my connection in just a moment. But let's say I want it to be called CMS project number. Instead, I'd keep the row in here and I'd go into my intake sheet and change the column name.
I think it's a
That's
different
kinda-
sheet, Walter.
Which is a different sheet, correct?
Okay.
And so let's go ahead and go, yep, you hit browse. And we're going to go in our intake, correct? And you'll notice it's CMS number. So then in here, instead, I'd change that to CMS project number. So what do we want it to be called? Do we want it just to be called CMS number, or do we want CMS project
No,
number?
CMS project number.
Okay, so let's go and rename this. And go ahead and hit OK. And then go ahead and hit save. And then let's go ahead and go back to, or where else do we need to make that change? Or just even validate that that change has been made.
Be the dashboard, no? The project dashboard?
So while we could go to the project dashboard from here, it was on the sheet that we were on previously with that summary row. And we kind of quickly went into it. So go ahead and click on new templates.
Yeah.
Where do we house all of our summary and profile data? Exactly. This is project data sheet.
Go back and change it here or what?
Correct. Yep, I'd rename it to CMS project number. So being here. While it will be on the dashboard too, you are correct. Since the dashboard is pulling the information from this project data sheet, we need to do that in here. And so that is all the dashboards, the portfolio level dashboards. The dashboard that we care about is always going to be in our new templates folder. It's going to be more towards the bottom.
So,
So you can click the new templates, and then it'll be at the bottom.
project dashboard.
Yep. But I already named it CMS project number, so we don't have to worry about it.
I see.
Okay. So the next piece we'll want to do is we'll want to go back to Control Center. Now, I hate to do this to you, but we're going to have to hit cancel or refresh the browser. Yep. That's the one thing. So this is, again, we're kind of doing rework because it's a teaching perspective, but as soon as I know that I can make these connections, it's typically, I'll do this before I even come into here. So yep, you hit yes, and then yes, I want to remove those. We'll go ahead and hit next. We're going to go ahead and select our dynamic report scope, go ahead and hit next. Do we make any change to the intake? Not this time, so we can hit next. But now, what do you see about the CMS project number? What's different?
It does have the sheet
Exactly.
location. Yeah.
So now let's go ahead and select it. Perfect. Now let's say you want to remove something. How would I go about doing that? Simply delete the row or delete the column. And it will remove the connection from Control Center, or it won't even let you choose it. So we changed the name of the CMS project number to CMS number, or from CMS number to CMS project number, and we changed the row to that as well. In here in this list, do you see CMS number anymore? The
No.
short answer is no. You won't find it in here anymore. As soon as I make a change, as soon as it detects that the value is gone, it won't show up in here. Now you can see, like campus contingency budget, some of that is on multiple sheets. That's another thing just to note is, you know, it'll pick up anything that's inside that template. But the main one, since it's our main consolidation sheet, is the project data sheet. So that's the most frequent one that you'll see. So does that make sense to everyone, how we have to make that connection? And so here's what's going to happen. Here's what's going to be the end or the benefit of that, or the end goal. So let's go back to our CSU LB, to our Smartsheet. And instead, I want you to click on the active project workspace on the left side navigation bar. Perfect. And then select any of the pieces. Yep. And again, the naming we'll talk about today, but let's go down to our project data sheet, which is smack dab in the middle of our, yeah, it'll be right there. Yep, exactly. So now do you see those blue cell links?
Mm-hmm.
So click on click on BH37, so not the blue cell, sorry, blue cell links, which are those little blue triangles. Click on any of the blue triangles that you see in here in the value column or in the contact column. So not the blue cells, the blue triangles. Yep, exactly. link in from intake. So exactly that. So that's what we just established inside of our control center is now every time I create a new project, it's going to grab that from the intake and put it into here. Now, this is a net new project and we're going to talk about this, but, or sorry, this isn't a net new project, it's an existing project. So that's again, a slight difference. And that's where we use global updates to reconcile that. But what we're doing right now is we're editing the blueprint so it impacts net new projects, not existing. So that's one thing to keep in mind. And that's why you don't see that blue triangle here. Well, one of the reasons is because we haven't saved the configuration, but the other reason is because it doesn't affect or impact old projects or existing projects. So let's go ahead and go back to SmartSheet Control Center. Are there any questions on this part here?
I have a question.
Yeah.
So where does this control center fall in terms of the flow chart that you showed us last
Yeah.
time?
I will gladly go ahead and show you. Let me pull that up for just a moment. There it is. I can show you once it opens up. So if I go slightly over, it's right here. It's right here.
Oh, I see. So it's the project intake sheet is literally where all the info will come from.
Starts, exactly.
Oh, I see.
And that's
Okay.
why it's the first part. So the way that the options are cascading down on the right side is the way that we move through the process of the solution. So again, it's configure an intake sheet, then what information will go to our project folder. And then the next part will be what information will come from our project data sheet down to our project update sheet.
Okay.
So it plays its part, right? It's the end of the intake process where I've created my project.
Mhm.
And it also covers the last part of the process, which is I'm rolling my project up to the project update sheet.
Oh, okay. That makes it more clear. Yeah, this
Yep.
this flow chart helps me a lot. Thank you.
Yep, and I will gladly clean it up for you because realistically, what this should say is it says it creates a copy of the project folder, but it connects. And I'm trying to get it to do it right here. Oh, well, I'll just do it later. It connects. And again, I'm going to clean it up so it looks a little bit better than this, but basically it makes this connection
That makes
from
more sense.
the
Okay.
project intake sheet to the project data sheet. And that's what we just covered. So it's asking, well, I don't want you to double duplicate. So what do you need me to do? And we're saying, okay, create the connection, bring in this data from the project intake sheet into here. But the cool thing is because once we configure it, it'll do it. We don't even have to tell it. It'll just do it automatically. So we just go straight to, hey, create the project. Project will be created. We can work out of it. Hey, create this, the portfolio, the roll up. It'll create the roll up for you. And then you can just look at the dashboard and it'll be automatically added.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, of course. Any other questions before we continue on? And we can reference this a little bit more. We'll go through it too.
Yeah, I think the flow chart's essential because it also shows like if we want to make any changes before we proceed down, it really needs to happen at the control center before, you know, to repopulate down.
Yeah, and I can make it a little bit more detailed. So we're happy to do that.
I think the important thing to know is that control center, once it's approved, now that we're going to do the automatic thing, it's just going to technically for
create
every project just apply it right through. But when we want to make changes, like for example, if we ask Nick to do some change or something's not working, he can dive into the control center and work on the logic, and Walter and Alina, whoever.
Exactly.
We're all becoming programmers through this whole thing.
Exactly. And the cool thing is that for existing projects, Control Center can update all of them in bulk.
Mhm.
So that's the
Okay.
other piece of Control Center. So anything that's
really?
been created by Control Center is technically in its wheelhouse, and then it can just new dashboard, new report, update this dashboard, add some columns, find and replace, can do all that.
Even for projects already created.
Just for project. So it has to be created through Control Center though. But if it's been created through Control Center, it will work. So for Dunder,
Even for those that are archived?
so once it's archived, it is no longer it's no longer eligible for global updates. That's the one thing.
But active projects, any active
But active
project,
projects, correct.
active projects will get the global update. Okay.
So exactly. And so that's where, you know, there's different ways to handle the archiving of projects as well. And we'll talk about that in a subsequent meeting. But for now, Walter, if you don't mind.
Walter, what happened? You closed everything out?
Oh, no, no, I had to have him share.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Yeah. Okay. So now that we've told Control Center to bring this data from our intake sheet to our project data sheet, let's continue on. So Control Center isn't just satisfied with, okay, what data do you want to bring over? It also wants to know, how do you want to bring that over? And I'll tell you why this is important. So let's go ahead and hit Show Advanced. I'm going to first talk about the different fields within these little boxes, and then we're going to talk about why that matters. So the first thing, how is the data being populated in this field? So go and click on the drop down and it's the first one. Yep. Go ahead and click on drop down. So the cool thing is, if you wanted to, you could technically use a different value you can either bring it from a different sheet, like our intake sheet, or you can enter it manually. Now, the only times you would enter it manually is if you're creating the project yourself, manually creating the project. If it's automatic, it's not even going to care about this. It's not even going to do it. So there's no point in that piece. So in this case, we want it to come from our intake sheet because we just made that connection, right, in our previous step. So you can just click out of, click right where your cursor is, and then we'll continue on. The next piece, and it's just this box, project name. The next piece is a little bit higher up. So it's just the field. It'll be denoted by the big, bold, white bar at the top. So the next piece is a required field, and we're just looking at project name, number 1. So above your cursor, as of right now, this little box in here, not just that drop down, but the entire box. So the next piece is the required, which is going to be on the right side. And that's just saying, is this a required field? Is this a required field that we want to bring over? I've never seen someone deselect it. And quite frankly, I'm not sure what happens if you deselect it. I think it just doesn't bring it over. But if you want something to come over, it's typically required. Now, we're going to move back to the left a little bit, and we're going to start with what templates should this appear in. So remember how we went into our project data sheet and put a placeholder row for that value. So specifically, we changed the CMS project number, so we made that row. This is an example of how we guide it to determine where it should be being put. So we're basically drawing it a map and saying, I want you to put it exactly here in this sheet. Now it can go in multiple sheets. It could go in, project name could be also in the RFI log, ASI log, submittal log, and all these others. In this case, we just want on the project data sheet because then the project data sheet distributes it to other places. And so once you make a decision to have the data populated from a separate sheet, like the intake, it already has a pre-designated place where it wants to put it. And that's why we went in and changed the name of the column in the intake sheet and then adjusted the row in our data sheet. Now, the reason why this is even in here is because, again, if it doesn't come from my intake sheet, it most likely means that I did not select it in the previous screen, and therefore it's a net new piece of data, and I need to choose where I want to put it in. So that's typically why that dropdown is even available. But in this case, very rarely do we have, very rarely do I have to select anything else from this dropdown. So let's go ahead and minimize that dropdown. Yep. The next piece is the description helper text. Again, it's not necessary. It's if you wanted to add in helper text to it, but it's not important in this case. So let's scroll back up to our first tile. Okay. The next piece is the target column. So the first thing I want you to look at is the way that the arrow is coming in. The arrow is coming from the outside, and then it's pointing to the target column. So that's the way that you depict what, where is the intended column for that information? Because the data is, again, going from the intake sheet and coming into the project data sheet. So this is what project data column do I want to add it into? Let's go back to SmartSheet really quickly. Notice how we have different columns. We have value, PO/work order number, health, contact, and date, right? We get to decide what column Control Center brings the value into. By default, it brings it into whatever column is directly to the right of the summary column. So with how the name is CMS project summary, a number, project description, so forth, whatever value is to the right, it automatically brings in without specifying any target column. Hence why project name, if we go back to Control Center really quickly, why project name is blank. It's saying, oh, okay, I'm just going to put it into the rightmost column. That's why project name, project description is blank, customer is blank, and so forth. However, scroll down just a little bit, Walter. A little bit more. Stop. Look at customer contact. It is contact. Let's go to our project data sheet. Look at the contact column and look at customer contact, which is actually row 24, right at the bottom of the screen, a little bit lower, right where my name is, second time. So here's the reason why we do this. And the reason being is if I want to maintain a specific data value, in this case, I want to maintain a name and an email, or even an email, so that I can use it for automations to send emails out of, or I want to, maintain a date, or I want to maintain a symbol, or again, whatever other value, we have it come into a different column. And that's why, in this case, we have put it into the project team in the contact column. Biggest use case, and the biggest use case for this solution is if I wanted to, notify with an RFI log, if I wanted to notify the construction manager automatically of an RFI log, or if I wanted to notify the project manager that a new RFI has been added. If you think about it, the reason why we have that email there is so that can cell link immediately to that other sheet, and then we can actually send out emails automatically. Whereas if it was just a text or number, which you can see on the left side, where it's just my name equivalent in the value column, it's just my name. There's no email associated with it. So it's not gonna be able to send anything out automatically. And so that's why we use that target column and why we specify it differently for certain values.
So related to, for example, I know you're identifying now construction manager, and you said assign it to contact, because otherwise it'd go in the PO work order number, I'd
Go in the
assume?
value.
Oh, and value, okay.
Yep.
So
Where
if
the
we want to
currently
add the CM inspector record, do we just change it here, or where do we change
You
that?
do change it here, and I actually updated the template so it is yellow.
Oh, okay, thank you.
But if you wanted to say that you already have them in the intake, then what we would do is we would go back to Control Center, say, yep, I want to add this person as a piece of profile data. You come in here and you'd make your target column contact, and then you'd be good to go.
Okay. All right. So
Here's another reason why we put them in a contact column. Let's go back to Control Center. So you'll see, and we'll talk about that in just a minute. Look at the approval column. So you can see it's approval column, and then it has an arrow going away from it. So I'm not sure why they didn't set it up logically where approval columns on the left and then target columns on the right. So then the arrow follows the right way. Just doesn't make sense to me. But that approval column is also basically saying, okay, what column in the intake sheet is the data moving out of? So if you think about it, the approval column for customer contact, so in the intake, the customer contact column is the source of that data, and the data is being connected into the target column. So that's what it's showing is where's the data flowing away from. So this is our origination. Our approval columns are source, and target columns are destination. So approval column is where it's coming from, target column is where it's going to.
Okay.
An approval column is always going to be from the source. So in this case, it's always going to be the intake. The approval column's always coming from the intake sheet. Now, the next piece is behavior. What does everyone think the behavior in this means? Just go ahead and select on it. And what do you think happens? I'll give you a hint. Go back to the project data sheet really quickly. Look at the delivery look at Toka, that cell. What do you think we selected for behavior in here?
Selectable value.
So can you edit it?
Probably.
So go ahead and
No.
type something in there.
Oh, not if it's
No.
grayed out. No.
Yeah. But
Because
why
of
is it grayed
the-
out? What does that blue triangle represent again?
It's intaking from somewhere,
Mhm.
from the
A
You
project
can
cell
only
data sheet.
choose those values that are
It's a
real
selling.
time. Yeah.
So which means it comes from the intake. So what if I wanted to change it, where would I have to change the value? We talked about this a little bit in
Where
our
it's
previous
originally
meeting.
coming from.
Template.
It's coming from the intake.
Yeah, I think.
So where would we have to change it?
With the intake.
On our intake, yeah. So if I wanted to change Toka right now to CMAR or something else, I'd have to go to the intake sheet. That's because there's a cell link.
Mhm.
And that's why this is important, because it defines where I can change certain things and then where I can't. So in this case, the process would be, oh, you have a different project, a primary project initiative, or a different college department is than the original, when we originally created the project. Great, I need to go in the intake sheet to make that edit. That's what that's saying.
Okay, and then where do you add, how do you add? So now we know it's a Toka delivery method, but I think we have contractor somewhere else on there. Might scroll up right above that. I'm not sure, since we have the value, why do we need the contact? Because it seems like we're filling in the blanks a lot under value.
Are you talking about,
Yeah, scroll up a little bit, Walter, on, so delivery method would be Toka, it's a type of, or collab, or whatever.
mhm.
Token number. I thought we had somewhere where we put in the contractor.
It's down
forget what
below.
that is. Yeah, down below. Because that would be our contact here, right? So it'd be Toka, a delivery method, Toka, and then contact would be like the contractor, unless you have it below. I'm just trying to figure out what the purpose of the contact column is on this intake sheet or on this data sheet, just because it seems like everything's defaulting to the right of the project information.
Correct, because that's what we've determined
Yeah.
should do.
Yeah, I agree. But so what would fall under contact, I guess? Like, do we have an
Contact
example?
lists. Any emails?
Oh, an email. Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yep, an email. That's the only time. It's just whatever value, whatever meets that value. So if it's a contact list value, then we want it in the contact column.
Okay.
But in this case, to edit the project name, project description, delivery method, customer, college department, so forth, I'd have to come back to the intake sheet. And that's
Correct.
because of the behavior that we told Control Center to do. And that's if you go back to Control Center and you go back to behavior, that's where it's called cell link.
It's cell link. What are the options there?
One-time
One-
rate. So that's the one-time
Editable.
rate is then
Okay.
I can go into the project data sheet and change it.
Uh-huh.
Now that's great, but the problem is the intake sheet wouldn't be updated if that's
Right.
and that would cause a discrepancy. And then editable value is where it's a combination of cell link and one-time rate.
Okay. So this is critical if you start adding things and you want to start things to link or make them one-time editable. Say we find something in the product data sheet that we want to add, we'd add the column, but then we have to come back into here and modify how the behaviors of it.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. And you only have to do it once and then it will just do it for all, again, net new projects.
Yes. Awesome.
Now the permission is the important piece. This is the one I want to show you.
Mhm.
So you can go ahead and click on permission. So this is also how you can share people. So you can use the intake sheet for automatic sharing. So if I always know I have the project manager in here, I can say that I automatically want them to always be an editor can share, or I always want them to be an admin. The cool thing is that as soon as Control Center auto provisions a project, it's going to automatically add in whoever's emails in the project manager column as an admin to the folder, or as an admin to the editor, or as an editor to the folder.
Okay.
So this is something I
What-
actually did want to show you, because this is important. So this way you can automatically share your project managers without having to specify it.
Okay.
And
Is the-
I'd probably add them as an editor can share for now, and then an admin if they need to be. But I'm going to show you where this is important in just a minute. So yeah, and that's the last thing that you can do in here.
So
Any other
if you're
questions
an,
before we go to bed?
if you're an admin, can you share?
You can, yep, and you can delete columns, you
And you can
can
do
edit
anything.
locked formulas.
Yeah, so we want to limit on who the admins are. We already talked about that. Okay. So for the
Correct.
most part, everyone would just default to editors, but admins, if they are project manager, can also share because their
can.
email is tied to that. Okay.
Mhm. And you can always upgrade them later on, but this is just by default.
Okay.
And let's scroll down just a little bit. So remember how we added in the CMS project number again? Scroll down just a little bit more. Things will default to one-time rate when you add them new.
Oh. And you want
So-
that selling.
Yep, so we can make it cell link. And then we can go and hit next. But before we move on, are there any other questions about the previous screen? And again, it's the first part, which is profile data selection, is what data do I want to move from my intake to my project data sheet or any other sheets in my project folder. And then the next one is how do I want it to get to there? Like what connection do I want to make? Do I want to make just a one-time write, so it just puts it in there, or do I want to make a consistent connection, which is a cell link, or do I want to make it an editable value? And then now we're saying, okay, we've got our data in from our intake sheet to our project folder items. Well, now we have to be concerned with our portfolio. So this is, again, getting our information in the project update sheet. So the first part is what is going to be the destination for our summary sheet. So this is going to be, again, where is the project data sheet or any other sheet pushing data to or rolling data up to? Now, again, there's a reason why our project data sheet is not just profile data, but also summarization data. And it's because, again, it needs to flow from that sheet to our summary sheet. I'm going to really quickly share my screen again. Hopefully, yeah. So now we're going to be defining this connection. That's what this connection right here. That's what we're defining right now in our control center. It's, okay, what information from my project data sheet, what summary information from my project data sheet do I want to bring to my project update sheet? So that can be rolled up so that we can say, oh, I've got, 30 projects that have an auxiliary funding source, where I have, 20 projects that are a department funding source, things like that. So that's kind of why we have it. Or I've got, 30 projects construction, similar to what you have with your project update sheet now. So it can act as your project update sheet where it's one row per project. That's what we're configuring right now. So Walter, I apologize. If you don't mind sharing your screen again, that'd be great. So the first part is what is going to be our destination sheet. So when you saw the arrow go to our project update sheet, it's basically what sheet are we pushing that data information to. And we have it as our project update sheet, which is the first drop down up there, right above your cursor. So that's there. So then identifying that. And the cool thing is you can have multiple update sheets. So you could, or multiple summaries. So you could have one be a project update sheet. You could have another be another summary sheet. So you can have multiple roll-ups, but typically I mostly just see just one that includes everything. Well, let's go and hit cancel. So we've already got it set up. The next piece is our summary data source. So what is the primary place that we're going to bring data in from? and it's project data sheet. I mean, we've talked about it. It's where we have all of our calculations, like our open RFIs, our campus contingency amounts, our budgetary information, our schedule and budget health, so all those kinds of pieces. So we're good there. But we want that to be the primary, because that's the only thing that we need it from. I mean, I could do other sheet, I could include other sheets, but I want a single source of truth. I want to know that if something breaks on my project update sheet, I know exactly to come to the project data sheet, nowhere else. That's why we typically have it only be one and that be the primary.
So Enrique, we're automatically creating a project update sheet now that doesn't have to be manually updated. It basically is pulling information from the product data sheet, which was the previous one that the Walter was in, and consolidated it all in that same format that we're used to seeing with the primary, with the update sheet every time we meet with the project managers. So that's what this is right now.
Yep.
Sounds good.
So if you scroll down, you'll notice some familiar fields. So keep scrolling down. So once we've picked our data source, now it's what field should come in. And if you look, we've got project name, and you keep going down. Project name, description, customer contact, manager, funding source, delivery method, CMS project number, primary project initiatives, the dashboard link, work order plan on number. We've got the CSULB building permit number. And then if you keep scrolling down, we've got a little bit more. We've got budget health, total project budget, total project cost, phase, pre-con schedule percent complete, and some other ones. But I actually would like you to go ahead and select some things for me.
Okay.
So for example, scroll up a little bit. One of the ones was current phase percent complete, which is actually slightly higher. So go ahead and select that. And so what it's going to do is it's going to, again, make that connection for net new projects, but it's also going to create a column for our create a destination. Now, if I already have a predefined destination, I come into my project update sheet, which if we could right now, Walter, go ahead and go to the project update sheet. The easiest way to get to it is just, hit browse, and then it's going to be in our capital construction solution workspace. So it's not going to be in our new template. It's actually going to be on the same level as our intake. Yep. So it's going to be right there at the bottom, project update sheet. So if I wanted to, I'd come in here and I'd change a column name. Because again, similar to the intake sheet where if the column name matches the row, the connection will work. Similar in here. If I want, again, the row's data to come into here, I need to make sure my column name in here matches with my row name in the project data sheet. So see where you have pre-con schedule percent complete? I'd probably change that to current phase percent complete, or I change that to construction percent complete, something like that.
That. You're
Yeah.
gonna
Now,
do this?
unfortunately, we have
that.
to do this retroactively, and because we add some things, we're just going to create a new column for now. The cool thing is that you can delete columns, and if you change the name of it later on, so we're not gonna change it right now.
Okay.
But if we change it later on, it'll work just fine. And I'll show you how to do that.
So these two specific sheets, I'm sorry, this one and the one that's outside of the templates, we can change, intake, project, we can make changes to these and the fund tracker outside of the new templates, and it'll be universal.
Mhm.
Okay. Why are they outside of the new templates? I guess it's just because they're more reports.
So my question for you is, do you want a new intake sheet every time you create a project?
A new intake sheet. No, because this intake sheet's just tallying them all up, right?
Mhm. Do you want a new project
All
update
good.
sheet every time you create a project?
New project update sheet. New project, which one is that? Sorry. No, definitely not.
Exactly. So that's why we keep out the new templates, is because if we didn't, it would create new ones of those every time.
Oh, I see. So that's why it's
Yeah.
outside of it. Okay.
Exactly.
So when projects get closed though, do they get removed from these?
They do, and that's what we're going to talk about during our
Okay,
archiving.
sorry.
No, it's okay. Yeah,
Meeting.
we'll talk about that during our next meeting, but yes.
Okay, perfect.
There's a
Just-
process of removing it from our intake, removing it from our project update sheet, and removing it from the active products workspace.
Okay, perfect.
Cool. So let's go ahead and go back to Control Center. And again, I can add in any other pieces, but for now, I've got everything I want. So let's go ahead and hit next. So the next part is the where question mark place. So let's go ahead and go back to SmartSheet really quickly. So this part is how we automatically add projects to reports. So traditionally, if I create a new project without Control Center, I have to go into the report and I have to add in that sheet to the report. So the report now brings in some of that sheet's data. In this case, what we're telling it is that, hey, you don't have to do that. As soon as you create a project, I'll automatically add it the relevant source sheet to that folder or to that report. So it automatically brings that data in. Now, the other thing that happens too is that in the past, if I wanted, so let's go to portfolio supporting items, which will be a folder right above. Yeah, exactly. Let's click on, I want to click on, what do we have? I don't think we have one just yet. Well, let's click on, what's a good one that I want to do? RFIs. Yeah, let's click on RFIs. So just hit get started. So actually what we're going to do is we're not going to use a project update sheet. We're going to deselect the project update sheet right there and go ahead and select the active projects workspace. So traditionally, I could select a workspace, and whenever a new item gets into that workspace in that filing cabinet, it automatically adds it to the report. Here's the problem with that. Look how many sheets there are.
Yeah.
Are there 63 RFI logs, or do we have 63 projects? No, we have 3 projects. Go ahead and hit next. Look how many columns we have available to choose from. It's an unwieldy amount. And that's why we have the dynamic report scoping, is because instead of adding in 63 sheets, it'd add in 3, and we'd have only columns that are relevant to the RFI log. So one, it makes it easier for you to build reports, and 2, you automatically get new sheets automatically added to this report. So here's what we're gonna do. We're at 63 sheets. We're gonna take that off.
So
Yep, 63 sheets, not right here, but we're at 63 sheets. Yep. Go ahead and remove that workspace. And then just go ahead and just click out of it. Perfect. Let's go to Control Center. So that source sheet section, that's what we're doing right now. So let's go ahead and select our report. So let's go select our RFI report. And it's going to be found in the construction solution, CSU, yep, that one. Underneath portfolio supporting items, that's where all of our portfolio reports are. We're going to select RFIs. Hit OK. Now, what sheet should be actually added to that source rather than all template sheets? What's the template sheet that matters in this case? Perfect. You're done. So now instead of adding all 13, 14, 15 sheets, or 20 sheets, I should say, 21 sheets, it's only going to add in the RFI log to the source of this report. But that's also the good thing. It's going to, every single new project I create, if I have an open RFI or a late RFI, doesn't matter when that project was created, it requires no extra work for you to identify those RFIs because it's automatically going to add the new project to that report. So let's go ahead and hit next. Now the naming. So let's say that you don't want to have a giant, so the naming convention is how it's going to name the different assets. So let's go back to the sheet really quickly, or to SmartSheet. Let's go ahead and hit the browse folder. Let's click on the, see how the active projects, it's BH377 DSA, College of Business Student Success, Dunder. The problem with that, if you click on, just click on the folder itself. It screws up my naming convention because if you look at it, there is a limit to how long names can be. And also, it just basically makes my numbering system completely useless at that point, right? So here's what we typically do. We typically name it like something else like a CMS project number, or we abbreviate it, or we add it to the suffix or something else like that. Or we add a project manager. Again, it just depends on what we want to do. And the reason being is so that way we can, one, identify a project if I were to search it up, but two, we can alphabetize or again, numerically sort certain projects. I get that you don't always have the CMS number. So that probably when you create a project in the intakes, that might not be the proper choice. But again, whatever, is a good, at least a good number to help with that kind of sorting process or identify a project is what we're going to want to use here. And again, if we go back to the and normally I have had to do this like way too many times. Normally I'd have to come into every one of these sheets, reports, and rename the damn thing. And it was so annoying. I've had to do that for a bunch of clients where it took me like 10 hours just to rename everything. So that's the nice thing too, is Control Center will do it for you. But also we get to decide how it's going to do that. So if you go back to SEC starter program, back to our Control Center, basically we right now how we have it is project name comes first and then the item's actual name. And we can change that. But right now we'll keep it project name, but that's something to think about, right?
Right.
Yeah, I think it'd be nice if we did it kind of numerically on,
Yeah.
and then it goes to data sheet, almost like in the process of how things would happen. Not necessarily once we get to construction, because RFI logs, all that just kind of happens. I don't know. I guess we have to look at that.
Yep. And
It's like
it all
fine
just
for
depends
now.
on how you name it.
Yes.
So let's go ahead and hit next. Everyone take a deep breath because we're at the last part of this
Aw.
piece. I
Walter
know,
loves this.
I
I'm
know.
about to
It's
have
a
a brain
pain.
explosion right now.
It's a long ass
More.
thing, but it saves so much time that it's super worth it. But so the last part is how are we going to do default sharing? That's all there is to it. So the first part is who is going to be, what are the leads going to be? So in this case, it's just the primary lead. So it's going to be the BBS SmartSheets at cslub.ub.edu. And then the other thing is, what is the project creator going to be? And this, of course, the project creator assumes that the project creator, if no one manually comes into here and hits that create project button that we kind of talked about, the non-auto provisioning,
Mhm.
that would be what that second option is. The lead should always be that service account, 100%, because if someone leaves, we don't want those, they're going to transfer the service account anyways. There's no point in changing that. We should keep it that way.
Okay.
Project creator should still be an admin because if you do auto provisioning, it doesn't matter at that point. That option no longer matters.
Well, project creator, though, if we leave it as an admin, they can delete. So any project manager would be able to go in and delete.
Technically,
things.
if they created it before auto provisioning could,
Okay.
but they're not going to be able to.
Okay.
The reason being is as soon as I hit approved, I would have to come into Control Center, create the project, select my project, and do my sharing and hit enter within a few milliseconds.
Yeah. Okay.
Because the auto provisioning will do it automatically for you.
Okay.
Now, sharing. This is going to be default sharing. So admins, if you know someone should always be an admin on here, let's put them on. And that's where I'd probably add in, a
The
group
people on this
or
call?
yeah. So I would just do a group and add them in. So go and click up to add up to 5. Click on that inside the box. Start
Only
typing
up to
anything.
5? Damn it.
Well, here's the thing. You can put groups. Type in anything. See?
Oh, so we have
can
to
do
create our own
groups.
group. Okay.
So I would create a group for everyone in here, and that's the way you get around that.
So how do we, how can we, before we unroll this out, can we, instead of us having to do this, can we give you this kind of information so that it could just be defaulted to, and then we could edit it?
Based on the user's organization, I won't be able to choose it for you.
Really?
I can only do emails, but I cannot do groups.
No, that's okay. I can give you the emails, and then Walter's got three people on his staff here. I mean, we could limit it to 5 for
Cool,
now.
then yeah.
Yeah, and then what about the editors? So I mean, Okay, forget it. I'm going down the rabbit hole.
No, you're exactly right. If you want them to be able to delete columns, unhide columns, make changes to formula cells, overwrite cell links, then yes, make them an admin. But
Yeah, there's a basic probably 5 for sure that we'd always want available just in case we need help, obviously.
yeah,
Or project managers need help, but
for the most part, editors.
and then the editors we just create, they wouldn't be defaulted, they would just be the project managers as they're created.
As of right now, yeah.
Okay.
Yep. We wouldn't put a project manager in here because of that profile piece. Remember where we said that whoever's email is in the project manager column,
Uh-huh.
when we did it, will be automatically be an editor. So that way we don't have to
Right,
do it here.
perfect. Okay.
And actually, funny enough, when I create a project, it'll show up in that little slot. Editor can share slot anyway. So
Okay.
now I want so this is sharing for the entire template. So the new templates folder, it's sharing for the entire folder. So every single item inside that folder.
Mm-hmm.
If you scroll down to where it says advanced, this is where you can share users or groups with specific permissions to specific templates. So I only want to share them to the dashboards every time. So I want to share leadership to the dashboard, or I only want to share them to the project data sheet, or I only want to share them to the RFI log. That's where you do it in here.
Okay, so if a leadership member wants to come in and just look at the dashboard for a specific project, they have to be able to be given permission to do that.
Editor can share.
So the editor would have to share the dashboard with, for example, our director or
Yep.
our
Or you can
AVP,
add them in here. You can just
or
make it
just add
advanced.
them.
Yeah.
Okay.
User or group, permission, make them an editor, and template, just the dashboard.
Okay,
Exactly.
okay. We'll just have to do that later.
Mhm. And then go
They'll
ahead and
have
hit
to
save.
have an account, right? And a license and all that.
No, you don't have to create a dashboard. Yes, you have to have a license, but just to view it, you don't.
Oh, okay. Okay.
But yes,
Well,
to
we-
actually
it's-
copy a dashboard, you 100% need a license.
So who's licensed right now in our group? Walter, is it just you?
I'm not sure. The only license that I've ever requested was the admin one. I haven't
Okay.
requested anything
So I can
else
show you where
before.
you can see that in just a minute, but hit save.
Okay.
Well, you may be able to see it, I think. So bottom right corner, go ahead and hit that save button.
Push save.
Yep. Perfect. And now it's going to be doing all its stuff. Let's go and go back to SmartSheet really quickly. Click on your personal, on the head and shoulder icon in the bottom left corner. All the way, yep, and the toolbar right there. Go ahead and click on user management.
And this is gonna bring like the entire CSU.
Yes, and I know there's a process for granting licensed users. So
Yeah.
you might get yelled at if you try to make someone a licensed user here automatically. But if you were to search anyone's email in here, in this call on the right side,
So anything with CSULB.
yeah, that might give you more than you want. But so it looks like Ben is not a
Mhm.
licensed user.
Right.
And then so forth, if we were to look up Nicholas, that will show up as,
Where is Nick?
yeah, where Nicholas is, that will show up.
No.
don't-
It's not fully, it's not truly alphabetical, because
Oh.
it goes by emails first, and then it goes by actual contacts. So
Oh,
now if you
Wow.
scroll down, you might see that.
Who is Anna?
who are these people?
You've got a lot of users. You've actually been added to the main CSULB account.
There's other people that use this SmartSheets and use CSULB?
Never heard of
It
it.
looks like it.
Wow,
Like this
interesting.
person is,
she's a
it
user.
could be that the chancellor's office is using it or some other,
Yeah,
and
Kathy
then they,
Bishop, Craig.
oh yeah, so Kathy Bishop is a buyer.
So-
She must be
scroll down a little
pending.
bit.
Okay,
Yeah, so
Enrique's a
Enrique's got a
license.
license.
All right, Enrique,
Right.
he's been
Ah, Enrique,
promoted.
you're a pro, Enrique. Gene
You're
Walker.
promoted. Gene,
So-
we can remove. How do we transfer licenses?
I would not,
I,
just because whoever, I can't remember who you went through.
yeah, I
Which-
have the contact of the person.
Yeah, but I would just ask if you're able to, and then you can transfer.
Yeah,
Okay.
I
Maybe,
actually, yeah,
Walter, we should meet to talk about who should have the licensing.
Yeah, that'll be good.
Okay.
Karen is
I
gone
guess what
also.
is the difference between a license and just a regular user?
So an unlicensed user can collaborate just like anyone, but they can't create new sheets, reports, create
Uh-huh.
dashboards. And
Okay.
there's certain functions like in there that they can't do. They can comment and add attachments, but that's about it. And then a licensed user can do all of that. And then there's of course different like unlicensed users can't use premium apps except for dynamic view and things like that. So
Yeah, is there a way, Walter, we could switch the people that we don't need to have licenses to the people that need them, like on this call?
it looks like Stephanie hasn't even logged in yet,
Yeah,
Yeah, I
which you can
will,
tell just from the pending. But anyways, I do have to go to a PT appointment right now.
sure.
So I have to technically leave,
Okay.
but
Okay.
Yeah.
Who's paying for all these licenses?
I don't know.
I think we need to revamp this because there was a time when somebody was in here from SmartSheets selling this thing up even before we even started. So I'm wondering all these were activated and somebody's paying for it without even knowing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well,
could be.
they're active, but they don't have a license. You
Yeah,
can
so they're
see
not paying for
here,
anyone.
the only ones are with the check mark.
Yeah,
Oh,
So
okay.
Alan hasn't logged in ever, I think.
cool. All right,
Damn, Alan. Okay.
I'm gonna leave
Sorry.
now, everyone, but you can
Yeah,
still
yeah.
stay on. Obviously, I'm not hosting
Yeah.
this, but go ahead
Thank
and
you,
just check us
Jacob.
out and go from there.
Thanks,
Appreciate your
Jacob.
help.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah,
Appreciate your
so-
time.
Hey, Walter, let's
Okay.
talk about this real quick.
Yeah,
Yeah, so let's I'd say make, if there's no cost, I don't know if there's a maximum licensing number we need, but I'd say everyone on this call should have a license, Telsey Long Beach.
right, that is true.
And then there's
It's-
people on here that have left that have SmartSheets access. So we have to make sure everyone in DCS has access before the training, I would think.
Yeah, it looks like I don't have access to, I have access to disabling the person, but not not changing or transferring. But I have the contact who does this.
Yeah, if you can, because we're getting trained next week over all DCS. I'm sure people are going to want to have access to start diving into it to play around with it. So
Yeah,
I think we should probably clean it up on who are admins, which should be us. The admins and the licensees should be us, right? Everyone on this call, including Stephanie and Nick. That's 6 of us.
yeah. I'll look at the list of the people who are invited, and yeah. Okay,
Okay.
so you want Stephanie and Nick to be
Yeah.
admin? Okay.
I'm sorry, that's 8 of us.
Yeah, yeah. My Alina and Ben don't really need a license. We can always use
Okay.
only the
The BBS one.
BBS generic one we can share.
Okay.
But what I'm gonna
Alright.
do is I'm gonna ask some of these people like this Anna, how did she have a license and how does she use it?
Okay. Sure.
And
Yeah, I mean,
figure out
it'd be
what's going on,
awful if
yeah.
we're wasting money. No one's. They all seem active though, whoever this is. So.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. Yeah, it looks like I don't have the ability to. What? I actually do have the ability to add people.
Okay.
I wonder if I delete the amount of people and then add the ones we need, we might be
Mhm.
okay. Because I can delete Karen, Jean, although Karen doesn't have a license.
I know for a while there, everyone was getting invites for SmartSheets and training, and no one knew what to do. Like, well, what is all
Yeah.
this? And we're like, oh, don't worry, training's coming. Don't worry. But
Oh,
that was pretty much all of DCS. That's why I'm surprised.
yeah,
And
and
then
it
we
looks
also,
like
yeah.
they have used it, like last login, February 14th.
Huh.
This is starting to sound like Wells Fargo when they open all these accounts. without anybody
Yeah.
including them. What's going
So
on with it?
this is Neil. The way this works, other CSU campuses,
Yeah,
you guys are part of the CSU System 1 account. That's why. So it's not just people in your group that are on it. It includes other academic groups, other departments that also use Smartsheet. But you're getting the benefit of the volume through it. So there is an administrator that adds and removes licenses. I think that's got a chancellor's office account.
Oh,
yeah, I know I know the contact. I forgot her name. It's a lady.
Okay, well, if you can help us with that, Walter.
I will, yeah, I'll go through the whole thing.
Yeah.
I'll even ask Ming Yao, our
Yeah.
CIO, see how he's using it.
Yeah, he logged in yesterday, so.
Yeah, exactly. So I will send him a message and see what's going on.
Yeah, and we also don't want people deleting our staff either. Like, we can delete them, but we don't want, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know why I have access to all this stuff, but
That's
yeah.
interesting. All right, you're the man.
All right, I will find out the whole
All
thing
right.
and see what's going on.
Great. Thanks, Walter.
All right,
Thanks,
sounds good.
everyone.
Yeah,
Thank
and
you.
don't forget to put the videos
Yeah.
of the recording.
Yeah, I thought I sent you the link, but I'll double check again.
No, I got the link, yeah, and I'm
Yeah, they're
actually
all-
I'm putting them on YouTube also and creating a playlist.
Wow,
So
we're on
for
YouTube.
so that way, so people who don't need because they're big videos, I might have to delete them from the chair later on.
Oh, okay.
And
Okay,
if I put
sounds
them on
good.
YouTube, they're off our servers and they're all free, and people can just click a link and access them from their phone, from anywhere,
That's
and
perfect.
learn from it. So yeah, we do have a channel. It's been around since Plan on the BBS Plan on corner.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, this is how I
Okay.
trained everybody 2 years ago to use Plan on. I made a ton
Okay.
of videos.
Oh, well, that's great.
Yeah, so we have quite a lot of videos on how
You
to
should
do
call that a
things.
BBS, just some changes, because there's a lot of stuff going on in there. Now with
Yeah,
us, BCS,
I can
hey,
probably just
BBS
rename
Training
it.
Corner. Yeah, Training
Yeah,
Corner.
BBS Training Corner. That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I have like GIS and
Yeah.
all kinds of things in here, how to do
Oh,
things.
great. Okay.
Okay.
I'll send you the link and then you can start moving them over and then
I
delete
will.
them if you want to. Okay,
Yep, I got a couple already, so should be good.
great.
All right.
All right,
See you
thank
later
you.
then.
Thanks,
Okay.
Neil. Thanks,
See you.
everyone.
Okay, bye.